All right, welcome back. We are going to be talking about what took place today at the Madlanga Commission, and we're joined by a panel of experts. We have the former Western Cape Police Commissioner, Dr. Leonard Max, former Interpol ambassador and security strategist, Andy Mashaile, as well as governance expert, Hlumelo Xaba. Gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for your time. So we're talking Madlanga Commission, and today we saw 3 witnesses take the stand, and at the heart of the discussions was that arrest on the 6th of December at KT Molefe's house, Katiso Molefe. And the 3 witnesses were Brigadier Lisiba Mokoena, who's the head of the Hawks in the Tactical Operations Division, Captain Barry Kruger, who serves under the Hawks, and then a former PKTT member, Captain Maxwell Wanda. Tate Mashaile, maybe let's perhaps begin with you and tell us what was your take on the Brigadier Lisiba Mokwena's testimony. How did you find him as a witness?
The Brigadier was found wanting, Katle, for the fact that the 2 tigers and a tigress, the commissioners, tore him apart because he didn't know. The left hand could not differentiate what the right hand was doing. For the fact that he was not coming out forthright and by giving out instructions to Captain Kruger, who was in Pretoria. Remember these guys, he comes from Silverton, Tom's Silverton, and the captain indicated that he was in Pretoria, which was a stretch flying down to Sentin. And that, to me, I found it wanting. They could have just phoned the Hawks Gauteng in Germiston, spoken to General Kadwa, who's the provincial head of the Hawks, so that the Hawks from that element fly quickly to Sentin to verify if those people who were at Katiso Molefe's house were real cops, and the process would have followed easy. The Brigadier was neither here nor there, and that really eroded confidence, my own confidence in him and the testimony that he delivered.
Hlumelo Xaba, I see you nodding your head there. Do you agree with regards to the credibility of the Brigadier?
Good evening to you, Katleho, and to my fellow panelists. Thank you very much for having me this evening. I actually fully agree with what Mr. Mashaile is saying, because if you can actually listen to his testimony in terms of the affidavit that he gave and that which was given by Brigadier Kruger, you will find that there are a lot of contradictions, because firstly, even the one that was given by I think Captain Wanda contradicts that which was said by Brigadier Mokoena, because a lot of things that he said there, that he did give instruction to Brigadier Kruger to go there, is actually something that is contrary to what was said by Captain Wanda, because Captain Wanda alluded to the fact that they were not made aware of the fact that the Hawks were going to be present at that scene, which actually now brings us to the question of who then briefed the Hawks to be wasn't it an encroachment actually for Brigadier Mokoena to brief some members of the Hawks to go there to check whether the team that was legitimate? Because as someone who is the head of the operational management task team, which is at the Hawks, you're supposed to know about the operations that are happening, which is something that they considered to knowing. But now, why would you actually instruct someone who you know very well is not at that vicinity to go and do an oversight on an operation that you very well aware of? So there are a lot of contradictions between the affidavits of the 3 witnesses today, but I believe that, like I said, I fully agree with what Mr. Mashaile is saying, in that the Brigadier was found wanting today, because a lot of things that he said were he actually conceded to a lot of things that were also debunked in other affidavits. So I think that moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see whether he will be called back or whether he will even appear at the ad hoc committee in Parliament, because many of the things that he said were very contradicting, and they also denote the fact that the criminal justice system, or rather units within the criminal justice system, have been infiltrated, because whose interest was he serving also by actually saying that the Hawks should actually go to Katiso Molefe's house. Meanwhile, Captain Wanda, who was a member of the PKTT said that he was not aware. And also, just before I land on this point, Captain Wanda also mentioned the fact that they were not aware about the Hawks being there, and the fact that they were aggressive when they wanted to do an operation in Katiso Molefe's house. So why were the Hawks aggressive? And
Right.
also, why is it that no one else was made aware? So I think that there is something that doesn't make sense in this entire affidavit, but I think we are yet to see what is going to unfold moving forward.
Certainly. Dr. Max, I mean, when we speak of Captain Wanda saying that they were not aware of the Hawks coming to this operation, is it normal for other police units to descend on such an operation?
If you, good evening to my fellow speakers as well. Yes, let me say that what is worrisome for me, despite the fact that my colleagues actually mentioned the discrepancies in the evidence, is that I saw a video clip where General Labia, the former Hawks commander, said that someone from KT Molefe's house or called him and said to him that the Hawks are busy there with a raid. But he said that he's not going to disclose the name of that person. Now, in the absence of a name, then we are left with to make some sort of inferences. First of all, that raid at Mr. KT Molefe's house was in December. The minister's letter is the end of December. Magotsi distribute that letter to relevant people involved in this circle. Now, you have to speculate now in the absence of the fact that General Labia don't want to disclose the name. Now, I asked the question, was it not perhaps the minister who called him to say, listen here, I got a call that the Hawks are busy there, can you check what's going on? This is just an inference which you draw. And that is important that Labia must be summoned to the Parliament as well as the Madlanga Commission to explain and tell those commissions and the ad hoc committee who called him. And in my analysis of all the evidence so far, which were actually given to the Madlanga as well as the ad hoc committee, is that there exists prima facie nexus between the minister's letter, the raid of the house, between and the distribution, the dissemination of the letter. So these things is not in isolation. There's a nexus between them, and that actually gives some substance to the allegations of General Mkhwanazi. And I must say, we as South Africans, we owe General Mkhwanazi big time, because if it was not for the 6th of July 2025, then we wouldn't have been in this position and know all the things which is going on in the SAPS.
Most certainly. I mean, you make mention of General Libya, actually, and with regards to who that person could have been that would have sent him or told him about the raid that is currently happening at Katiso Molefe's house. And we also heard from Captain Wanda that at some point he was speaking to Molefe's bodyguard, Lehasa Moloi, and he actually asked him if they were not concerned about the person that they are arresting, who is a friend of the minister, and he asked him, which minister are you referring to? And he said, the Minister of Police. How concerning is it that you would find that even a driver would be aware of those alleged links, if indeed they do exist? Dr. Max?
Do you posing the question to me?
Yes, to you, Dr. Max.
Yes. That is also part of of my assessment, and that is part of the link which I made. That I think it's a bodyguard or a driver of Mr. KT Molefe that asked Captain Wanda that are you aware that this man is a friend of the minister? And Wanda asked him, but what minister? And he said, Minister of Police. So that is concerning, and that is the inference I draw from that evidence, as well as all the happenings with the dissemination of the letter as well as the minister's letter per se, that something is fishy. So as people not as innocent as they pretend to be.
And Dr. Mashayile, we speak about the aggressiveness that Captain Wanda mentioned of the Hawks and just their presence being at this operation without the knowledge of the PKTT. Under normal circumstances, what impact would it have when you have a different unit descending on an operation of this nature without the knowledge of those that were initially there?
This is the storyline. Someone calls General Libya, and that someone was Malcolm X, as we later learned. Malcolm X is a service provider and advisor to Katiso Molefe's brother. And the reason that we had when General Libya was interviewed on one of your sister stations, was because this Malcolm X called General Bia and said the Hawks are raiding, and General Bia said he does not know of any raids conducted by the Hawks, which prompted this chain of events that ultimately saw Captain Kruger pitching up at the gate of Mr. Katiso Molefe and engaging Captain Wanda. Normally, what happens would be if there is a special operation like the PKTT having it gone down there, they wouldn't normally inform other units or inform the station because it's expected to be a surprise element of raiding so that the suspect is not tipped off by anyone at the station or by anyone at any of those units. So long story short, it is normal that the PKTT or any special operation is kept closely. And in the event that someone calls someone, those that would be coming through would be to verify if those were real cops or fake cops. And in this instance, we learned from the evidence or the testimony delivered by Captain Wanda that it was known and it was proven beyond reasonable doubt that they were not fake police officers, but they were from the leadership of General Kumalo. So long story short, Kater, these things are normal. You hide it from other units to avoid a tip-off. But in this instance, I'm sure the Hawks' involvement was triggered by Malcolm X calling the general.
I mean, Hlumelo, when we listen to these with the Malcolm X that's tipping off the general then allegedly this domino effect that we are hearing, what does it really say to us with regards to the trust that then the public would have in the South African Police Service and all the other units connected to it? Because you would think that something of this nature would be kept top secret to a point that someone who's alleged to be a criminal kingpin would be behind bars.
Well, I think in this instance, one of the questions that we should ask ourselves as the public is, why would the Hawks, being a unit of SAPS, be reluctant to actually assist SAPS in performing its functions? Because, for instance, one of the things that Captain Wanda mentioned was the fact that he met Brigadier Kruger at the scene, and he actually didn't identify himself to him, which is also a red flag as to why wouldn't you want to identify yourself to someone who is performing the same functions that you're supposed to be assisting them with? Because we need to actually remember the fact that the Hawks are also work conjointly with SAPS in exercising their functions in the criminal justice system or within the South African Police Service. So I think that's one of the questions that we should ask ourselves as to why were the Hawks a bit reluctant to assist SAPS in this particular operation? And then also, I think the essence of everything that is happening here actually corroborates the fact that there's a discord within the South African Police Service insofar as SAPS as well as the Hawks are concerned, because I'll go back to what I said now, whereby Hawks members were actually aggressive and reluctant for the SAPS to actually go in, because like Mr. Mashayile also mentioned right now, that these operations are usually kept a secret, and usually you wouldn't expect people to divulge any of the details because it's something that is supposed to be a search and seizure or some sort. Like Captain Wanda also mentioned that it's a J50 warrant, whereby it's a warrant of arrest that you actually get to the scene and arrest people if you have got enough evidence and you even have a warrant to arrest. So I think this says a lot about, firstly, the infiltration that has been alluded to in this entire process in regards to external actors at SAPS infiltrating the criminal justice system, because this is not the only instance whereby tip-off was given to certain individuals who are not within the South African Police Service, by the way, to actually go and collude with these criminals. So I think that in essence, it just corroborates the fact that there is a discord within the South African Police Service and within its other units.
Dr. Max, you mentioned earlier a prima facie nexus where you spoke about the time at which Madlanga was raided, the arrest of Molefe, the letter of disbandment, and then Brown Mokgotsi then sending that letter over to Madlanga and saying you don't need to worry at all. The Captain Wanda is now referred to as a former PKTT member. What impact has this disbandment letter had, even though the PKTT still exists? He now no longer serves in the PKTT because he mentions that at the time of when that letter was sent out, some of them were sent back to their original posts. So are we seeing that there is actually a tangible impact from that letter, even though the PKTT is still in function?
Yes, of course. You know, the thing is that it is clear that those who were arrested had links with very senior officers, as well as the bodyguard or the driver said were friends or still friends with the Minister of Police. And the mere fact that the minister issued this letter of disbandment obviously had a negative effect on the members. And what we have learned so far from the evidence is that there is a conspiracy between officers in the South African Police Service and these people with criminal attitudes and backgrounds. And that doesn't bode well with the public in relation to public trust in the police. We have heard that the public trust in the police, according to a survey by the Human Rights Research Council, that in last year, 2024, the trust in the police were at 22%. And I think that it is worse now after all these revelations. So, yes, it demoralized members in the service when they experience this type of friendship with criminals by their seniors. And it must be addressed. I think really we have seen in the past that commissions of inquiry didn't deliver, the expected results in South Africa. And I hope really that the president and the government will give priority to the recommendations by the Madlanga as well as the ad hoc committee of Parliament who investigate these allegations.
And Tate Mashele, do you think that disbandment letter actually now has a tangible impact on some of those operations, especially by the PKTT?
Kati, no, I don't think so. I think that letter and the process that letter or the chain reaction that came as the distribution of that letter inspired those who were in the PKTT, even as Captain Wanda is referred to as a former member. I am definitely sure that with the case, the criminal case that General Mkhwanazi has opened, investigations that are going on now that led to the confiscation of the gadgets or devices owned by General Sibiya for further investigation has inspired the members of the PKTT more than ever before. Even some of the investigations that both you and I don't know, Katleho, in terms of development, I think they are more than energized to prove the point that, yes, there are top-ranking officers who are in collusion with the criminal elements or those who are suspected to be involved in criminal activities. I am sure that's one reason why we didn't see the faces of witness A, B, or C. It's because ongoing investigations would compromise them from being attacked point of view. It is against that background, Katlego, that I'm saying I strongly believe that they have more energy now than more than ever before. And quickly, when we go back to the issue of the Hawks coming there, I am sure General Libya should be able to explain. I mean, if someone calls you and say, here are people who claim that they are from your organization, that individual would want maybe to advise the Hawks that there are Hawks, rogue Hawks, and or inform General Libya so that General Libya can quickly arrest those who are conducting the raid, only if and only if those are fake police officers or rogue police officers, which we both now know that they were real police officers and they were not fake or rogue.
All right, gentlemen, let's hold our thought there. Dr. Max, please I need to take an ad break, but when we do return, I really do want you to add to that. We are speaking about the Madlanga Commission and the focus today, that being of the arrest of Katiso KT Molefe. Remember, you can also send us your WhatsApps and also give us a call. But for now, we're going for a quick break. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. We are discussing the Madlanga Commission, who today had 3 witnesses, 2 of them from the Hawks and 1 a former PKTT member. We are discussing this with the Cape Police Commissioner, Dr. Leonard Max, former Interpol ambassador and security strategist Ndi Mashaile, and governance expert Shumelo Xaba. So, Dr. Max, before we went for a break, you had a thought. We were still talking about that disbandment letter, and Dr. Mashaile was saying that he believes that it's actually inspired many of those PKTT members and those from SAPS to now do better and do more in their work. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say we read in the newspapers and as well as electronic media daily about police corruption. But what we have also learned during these testimonies of the different police officers, there are still, despite that criminality in the police, there are still committed police officers, regardless of the threats against them, are pursuing justice. And as you people are aware that we had 2 police officers who testified in camera because they fear for their lives. And those officers involved in the PKTT will only be inspired if their commanders resource them as well as provide them with the necessary protection. Any unit is as successful as the commitment of the commander, because the commander got power. Don't underestimate any officer's power, and especially the national commissioners and people like of Sabia and General Mkonazi. General Mkonazi came out. He put his career at risk in the interest of justice and in the interest of those members who work long hours to ensure that justice has been done. So although I agree with my friend that they are inspired, but it will depend on the protection and the resources which the commanders provide them.
Shumela, in fact, that was going to be my next question to you with regards to the extent of infiltration and how much of governance plays a role between those that are at the top of the triangle, filtering it down to those that are at the very bottom. How is the morale and how are people influenced, even if it's by the very few bad, rotten apples within the police service? How does it impact the rest of them that are doing their operations?
Yeah, let me say that General Mkonazi, as I said, already indicated his commitment to support these officers. And I think they get strength from his actions. And everybody is now actually aware of what is going on. those rogue officers will be very careful to proceed with their activities because they are being watched. And yes, we need to sanitize the police from unlawful political influence and interference, as well as from this criminal police officers, which is currently within the South African Police Service for their own interests.
Hlumelo, your take on with regards to just the influence when it trickles from the top in terms of the orders that are given for police officers to either be inspired or to absolutely lose their morale?
Well, what I've come to realize thus far in these proceedings, both in the Madlanga Commission as well as the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Inquiry, is an act of defiance from everyone that has testified against Minister Senzo Mchunu. Because if you recall, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's affidavit, it suggested that he was very defiant and reluctant to act in accordance with that disbandment letter that was handed down on the 31st of December 2024. And even if you can listen, for instance, to General Masemula's affidavit, you will also realize that he was very reluctant and didn't want to disband the political killings task team. Instead, he opted for a winding down, which goes to show that they did not act on his word by disbanding the political killings task team. And with the nail on the coffin, I believe, was former Minister Bheki Cele, who actually, for a lack of a better term, mopped the floor with Minister Senzo Mchunu at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee last week. So you can come to realize that central to all of this that is happening now is the fact that Minister Senzo Mchunu was influenced by external actors who did not really have the interests of justice at their heart. So I think that what we've seen now is that the public has gained trust in General Mkhwanazi and those that have acted in defiance to Minister Senzo Mchunu. But I think also, Katlego, what I've come to notice is that these proceedings have depict the fact that there are saints and there are sinners in the South African Police Service or in the criminal justice system as a whole. Those that are actually for the law and doing what is right, and those that are actually acting in the interest of criminals and other rogue elements that are outside of the state. Because what is unfolding now is actually a rogue relationship between those in the state, which is the criminal justice system, and those that are outside who don't really have the interest of justice and for the law to take its course. So I think that so far what we've actually seen is that there was a defiance insofar as disbanding the PKTTEs, but also, before I actually land, is the fact that I think President Ramaphosa will have a lot of accounting to do, because all of this happened under his watch. And I think that his time at the Madlanga Commission and even at the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee is going to be difficult, in that he will actually have to account for a lot of things that have happened under his watch. Because also, apart from all the rogue elements that have been happening at SAPS, this is also in some way, this also has elements of maladministration, in that there was a lot of meddling as well as encroachment from the minister's side, as well as from, for instance, the president's side to a certain extent, because all of this happened under his watch.
And Dr. Mashali, do you agree that the president now has quite a full plate on which he needs to account on?
Yes, Katli, he has a plate loaded, and he has the dice loaded against him, given the performance of the minister, given the performance of General Sibiya. I can safely say he has given himself a breather by putting the minister on special leave. And I am sure wherever he is, the president, he is calculating where to place the minister, because given the data set that is before you and I and my brother Lenit, as well as my brother Ntateka, we can deduce from the data set, or we can extract the nugget of wisdom that says the minister will definitely not come back as the minister of police. So in your strategic calculations, Katlego, you want to already look at the end product of this process and fit it in on your plans when you are going to sit before the Madlanga Commission as well as the ad hoc committee. We have seen those that mounted the tiger, General Sibia and the minister, not being successful in dismounting that tiger. So at the end of the day, the president has a lot to account for and has a lot of explaining to do.
Can I just add to it?
Yes, please, Dr. Max.
Yes, I just want to add to what my friend actually said, both of them. You know, if you look at the defiance of General Mkhwanazi as well as General Masimola, the National Commissioner of Police, now it is expected between the minister and the National Commissioner, there must be a cordial relationship. And at this point in time, the evidence given against the minister is clearly from both the senior officers who's responsible for managing the country as well as the KwaZulu-Natal province, that there's an irreparable trust break of trust, irreparable. So there's no chance under the sun that the minister, although he fought now for his life and say career's life, to restore his credibility, he's not going to succeed. And Bheki Cele, he came and he buried him, you know, totally. So my assumption is, and what I see coming is that Professor Firoz Kachalia, he will be appointed as full-time and in that position of Minister of Police.
Kaba, do you think that would then in some way restore some of the hope and the trust that South Africans would have if then we have Professor Kachalia coming in then as a full-time minister?
One thing that we actually must not, I would say, run away from is the fact that Professor Kachalia's appointment is also still under scrutiny from various actors within the state and even from some political parties, and that was unconstitutional, because you'll remember that the constitution indicates that when a minister actually resigns, there should be, or maybe if they're not available, there should be someone from within the cabinet that is appointed to take over those duties. So I believe that that is something that maybe is still going to be scrutinized, but I do believe that Professor Kachalia is likely at this stage to be appointed permanently on that position. But also, I think that in these proceedings, Katleho, the public has a very huge role to play, because I believe that the fact that we've gotten to the stage that we are in now is a result of the pressure that the public has been putting on the president. Because we must remember that formally, had these revelations not come out the way they did on the 6th of July, I don't think we would be where we are now, because in my assumption, what actually propelled President Ramaphosa to act in the manner in which he did was the public outrage, and considering the fact that this time around it's not like in the during the years of the Zondo Commission, where it was just corruption and the looting of resources in state-owned entities. This is also a compromise.
All right,
how far we've come in regards to this. So I believe that the public has a huge role to play, but also I think that moving on, because the commission will need to now take out a preliminary report, I think in December or January, maybe, depending if it doesn't get extended. President Ramaphosa will be under pressure even then to actually act on the findings and the recommendations that will be given to him by the commission. But also another process that I think will be interesting is the fact that the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee will also have its own recommendations and findings, which will then go to Parliament. You must remember that the process that the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee is undergoing now is the same process that actually impeached Busisiwe Mkhwebana. So what's going to be interesting is whether or not the national members of the ANC in particular, because we know that they have a history of protecting their own when it comes to such processes, will they actually defend Senzo Mchunu against the recommendations and findings of both the Madlanga Commission and the Ad Hoc Committee inquiry, or will they actually act in the interest of the public by actually ensuring that he is removed as minister ultimately? So I think that's what's going to be interesting moving forward. But I believe that the public has a huge role to play in this case by actually putting pressure on both the president and even the Ad Hoc inquiry to act punitively against everything that has actually been diverted to the stage.
Ntate Mashale, as your parting shot, yes, sir.
Katleho, safe to say, General Mkhwanazi successfully checkmated Minister Mchunu, successfully checkmated General Sibiya. So the next phase of the strategy would be to look at realigning crime intelligence, realigning national leadership in terms of the outputs prescribed in the Constitution and the SAPS Act, which therefore means that those who are deemed not to be healthy in terms of operational effectiveness and efficiency will automatically fall by the wayside, if not be requested to take on early pensions.
All right, so those were your parting shots. Maybe let's quickly get yours, Dr. Max, as we're about to close up.
Yes, I just want to say what my friend Kaba says about the ANC protecting each other. We must take note of the fact that the ANC is not majority anymore. There's quite good checks and balances built in now in this national government, the government of national unity. So the ANC won't get it right to protect now Kunu.
Right.
And I'm pleased that justice will prevail.
Well, we certainly do hope that there is light at the end of this tunnel. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights and your inputs this evening. That was Dr. Leonard Max, Tate Endima Shaile and Hlumelo Xaba giving us their expertise this evening.